Horatio Gates Spofford was a prominent American lawyer and a Presbyterian church elder. He was born on October 20th, 1828, to a gazetteer author, also Horatio Spofford, and his wife, Elizabeth. Now, on September 5th, 1861, Horatio married Anna Larson of Stavanger, Norway, in Chicago. Now, Horatio was a lawyer and a senior partner in a large law firm. The Spoffords were supporters and friends of evangelist Dwight L. Moody, heard of him? Through the years, Anna gave birth to 4 daughters. Now, in the spring of 1871, Horatio actually invested in real estate just north of Chicago. Yet just a few short months later, in October, the Great Fire of Chicago reduced the city to ashes, destroying most of the Spoffords' investment with that. Now, 2 years after the devastation of the Great Chicago Fire, the Spofford family planned a trip to Europe. Now, late business demands, zoning issues arising from the fire, kept Horatio from joining Anna and the girls on the family vacation in England, where his friend Dwight L. Moody was preaching. Tragically, on November 22nd, 1873, while crossing the Atlantic on the steamship Ville du Havre, the ship was struck by an iron sailing vessel, killing 226 people, including all 4 of the Spofford's daughters: Annie, age 12, Maggie, age 7, Bessie, age 4, and their 18-month-old baby. Anna, his wife alone, survived the tragedy. Now, upon arriving in Cardiff, Wales, she sent a telegram to Horatio that read nothing but the words, "Saved alone." Shortly afterwards, as he traveled to meet his grieving wife, Horatio was inspired to write the now famous hymn, "It Is Well With My Soul," as his ship passed not too far from where his daughters had died. Now, I've placed a copy of the song lyrics in the description. It is more than well worth the time to read, sing, and learn this song, as the story clearly demonstrates the brevity of life and the depths of pain a person sometimes is called to carry. How did Horatio do it? How did he make those steps forward, not after, but during a living nightmare? Following the sinking of the Ville du Havre, Anna gave birth to actually 3 more children. Horatio, born 4 years after the tragedy in 1877, Bertha the following year in 1878, and Grace in 1881. Now, as if their 4 daughters was not enough, on February 11th, 1880, right before Anna became pregnant with their final daughter, Grace, their son Horatio died of scarlet fever, only at age 3. Now, this final tragedy, after a decade of financial loss and personal grief, accompanied by a lack of support from their church community, began the Spoffords' philosophical move away from material success toward a lifelong spiritual pilgrimage. Anna and Horatio Spofford soon left the Presbyterian congregation Horatio had helped build and hosted prayer meetings in their homes. Their messianic sect was dubbed the Overcomers by the American press. Overall, the Spofford story is admittedly very tragic indeed. Now, the fragility of life can never be underestimated, and the depth of loss can never truly be measured. Yet, from so much tragedy comes a symbol of true faith, like is rarely seen anymore. I know we currently live in an era where it seems that life is being snuffed out rather quickly for many young individuals. Now, the truth continues to be unraveled on the reasons why this is happening, but it cannot be hidden any longer. Death has no favorites when it comes to whom he chooses. As a group, I do believe that it is important that we share and try to bear each other's burdens, because that is definitely a call from Christ. And therefore, the Godly Guys Stuff Group is here for these discussions. It's one of the main goals to help one individual weave through the confusing moments in life where things are not as simple as we would like them to be. I cannot underestimate the concept of being down and out, okay? Because my wife and I have been there many times ourselves. And when those times were there, the question is always in our mind, and the answer is always evasive. How do we move on from this? Are there tried and true methods or steps that can be taken to move past difficulties or tragedies or lifelong thorns of the flesh? Do we have an opportunities waiting in front of us that have been hidden? The era of reluctance. Moving on from a very difficult position is never easy. It's one of the biggest understatements of the millennia, I would assume. But I do believe we have an inherent reluctance built in our genetic code, which we must fight against each day and every day. Now, this reluctance to better ourselves comes from our sin nature origins. Now, that just makes sense to me. I have witnessed people who truly threw away years, even decades of their life, all the way to the end because they choose to not move on from an issue. I've seen bitterness eat away at the very souls of individuals as their final moments of life were used to complain about problems that occurred decades before, which I'm sure all the other people associated with that problem had probably long forgotten. And even today in our modern society, now we have developed a very sophisticated method and processes and procedures to deal with the symptoms of issues, but not actually overcoming what I would believe the main source of the problem. Now, we have become a society enveloped in, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. If it's not my fault, it's someone else's fault, and therefore I should not be held responsible for the repercussions of whatever it is. I also should not have to work in any manner to alleviate the problem. Also, if you complain about my problem, well, you're just wrong. And by stating you have a problem with my problem, you're causing my problem to be even worse. And therefore now my problem is actually your problem, and you really need to deal with it. When you live in a society where no one is at fault, yet everyone must pay for all the problems, is there really truly any resolution? The godly guy knows that this cannot be. But we must accept reality that our culture forces us to live in a society of reluctant people in pain. Most of them are so far down the rabbit hole, they don't even recognize the situation as it truly stands. Now, but for us as men who understand truth, we still have problems, and we still have daily sacrifices that we must learn to accept and overcome. Now, some of them are harder than others, admittedly. So we need to focus on how to appropriately move forward for no matter what the situation is. Now, this has nothing to do with equality or equity. This has to do with you and your problem, or me and my problem, and how to move forward from it. So let's look at the great simplifier on how this is accomplished. The steps to stepping forward. Now, many of us have heard the verse from John 1 verse 5. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. But have you noticed the connection that this verse has with James 1:5? Says, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. Now, we've been told countless times in churches that darkness will never conquer light. But how do we become that light? How do we have that light in our lives, especially with our difficulties? Now, James makes it clear how to have this light and how to use this light. Now, I have mentioned in previous videos how many times gifts are not given because they were never asked. Look a few verses farther down in James 1 to verses 19 through 21. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this: everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry, because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. Therefore, get rid of all moral filth and the evil that is so prevalent, and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you. So the challenges for moving forward are as follows. Slow down. The trials you are currently dealing with will always turn into tornadoes. In the intensity and insanity that comes from these tornadoes, you have never had patience, but rather an urgency for solutions. Now, God has never been one who was impatient. So keep this in mind for when the next trial hits. Now, next, stop talking. Stop suggesting. Open your mind and heart for the wisdom that awaits. Now, you need to realize that God has a plan which does not involve you becoming panicked. Did you hear what I just said? Do you understand the words? Even if you are in a leadership position, your objective at this point in time is very clear. Silence from you is required. Now present your issue to God in prayer. Lay out the problems, all the parameters, and have the conversation that is needed in order to make sure that you can lay this problem at His feet. When you're done with the prayer, make sure that you get up, but the problem stays down, and you do not carry it beyond that prayer. Now, this will be the hardest part, admittedly, because it means that the problem is no longer yours, but God's. And as a typical sinful human being, the last thing you're going to want to do is walk away from your problem. But understand that at this point in time, the solution is unknown to you. In the best hands, the problem belongs to God. Now begin living your days with an anticipation and a hope and understanding that an answer is imminent. You can go throughout your day, and of course, the problem will probably come back in your mind, but each time it must be laid at His feet until that answer has been revealed. Anticipation in this moment of time can sometimes really be interesting, almost exciting. This is truly where the Christian life expands beyond common and normal understanding. Now, if you never had this happen before, just understand this is where faith becomes action. This is where God works. Now, I want to add a subpoint to this challenge. This is the perfect time where you need to be keeping a journal. I know it's not a manly thing, but you are going to want to be able to look back at this time and remember and see how God delivers you. See, a journal is an excellent way to make sure that your request is presented back to you in your own words. The Godly Guide Notes intentionally have a journal page specifically with this built in mind. Now, a place for you to not only write out your prayer request, but also maybe your prayers, or how God is working through you and your life throughout the week. Now, you can use these tools because what comes next is very important. Humans have a bad problem when it comes to memory. Next, God provides the solution. But you're not done yet. Continue to write down the facts that this story is ongoing. Make this an answered prayer in your journal, because just the fact that you have a solution doesn't mean that this problem won't arise again itself sometime. Not only do you have a solution, but if you have been journaling, you have a roadmap for when this problem arises itself again. Now, many issues that we run into are cyclical, and Satan is not an idiot. He can hit you a second time, but it will have potentially much more potency to it. Now, this won't be the last time that you have this issue. So how valuable will that journal be if this issue is raised again? And you have the ability to work through it with a faith that is no longer unseen. Did you catch that? You now have more than an unseen faith. Just think about this. You now have more than an unseen faith. There is no greater weapon for a godly guy. Wrap up. If you are in a situation where you don't know where to turn or where you don't know how to move forward, take heart. This is the way out of it. We read 1 Corinthians 10:13. No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will always provide a path, a way out, so that you can endure it. Now understand that in these scenarios, the temptation is to stay down, to not grow, or to not solve the issue. Now, He will give you an opportunity to move forward, but you must use every fiber of your being to ignore our culture and the reality that it dictates. We are not meant to stay in sin, but to be triumphant over it. We seem to always look over the beginning of verse 13, what is common to mankind. Now pay attention to what is being said here. Your issue or trial might seem extremely specific to you, but it's not. All trials are common to God, including yours and mine. Take steps now and begin moving forward onto a path which you probably can't even comprehend right now. And that's okay. Now it's your turn. So what did I miss today? Do you view moving forward as a far more complicated scenario than I have described above? Are there different areas that I might have possibly missed that are vital to overcoming problems and moving beyond them? What additional steps might need to be taken to make sure that we are truly moving forward in life? Or what struggles might you be running through when it comes to overcoming something, and how might you be needing accountability when it comes to your issues? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for listening throughout the entire video, and please definitely subscribe or follow me or join the Godly Guy Stuff group. Become a member on Gab. Gab is currently launching headquarters of the content that is producing the Godly Guy Stuff. So if you're watching this on some other platform, there's a good chance that you're missing a lot more content that you could be seeing posted in the Gab Godly Guy Stuff group. Now, I have an upcoming locals community where I'm populating information, and I'm looking at posting early links to scripts, to notes, and have more of a personal connection when these videos take off. Now, these first few videos are kind of a test to see if I can build a base with this concept. Links are in the descriptions below for everything. So if you want to be connected even more and be part of the Godly Guy Stuff build, I would, let me know. I'd love to hear. Head on over today to Gab and keep a lookout for the locals, because it's potentially live by the time that this video releases. And I really look forward to talking to you guys and having this conversation continue. Thanks.